Threats to biodiversity. Biodiversity at global, national, and local levels. It has been observed that threats of biodiversity is at every level, even it is at global, national, local, or regional levels. So, what are the major threats to biodiversity? First is habitat destruction. So, important to protect habitat in order to protect biodiversity within. So, habitat destructions can be seen everywhere, either it is at a global level, national level, to the local levels, as well as regional levels. So, we see that several human activities are there which lead towards destruction of natural habitat, and thus it leads towards several negative activities towards natural resources. Huge pressure from the world's rapidly increasing population. So rapid growth of population is a major threat or a major role player in destruction of natural habitat. Second is global climate change. So change in a biotic elements of ecosystem is leading to biotic change. Habitat fragmentation, that is from human activities, and it reduces ability of habitat to support species. Pollution, so introduction of pollutants such as nutrient overloading with nitrate fertilizer, as well as more immediately harmful chemicals. Combinedly, these are major lead players in increase in pollution. Overexploitation, this includes the illegal wildlife trade as well as overfishing, logging of tropical hardwoods, etc. Introduction of alien species introduced by humans to regions where there are no natural predators. Diseases, reduction in habitat causing high population density encourages spread of several diseases. So we see that there are several threats to biodiversity, and the major or most important role player is increase in population. Once there is increase in population, there will be huge demand for several things like food, shelter, and many other things. So whenever there is demand of food, high demand of food, definitely large area will be, a bigger size of area will be cultivated. There will be a pressure on water resource. There will be pressure on land resource. Therefore, it is said that rapid growth in population is a major role player in habitat destruction, thus leading towards climate change, global warming, sea level rise, unpredictable weather extremes, natural calamities, frequently occurring natural calamities. Somehow, these all things are either directly or indirectly related to population growth. Additionally, global climate change due to human activities as well as natural activities, habitat fragmentation, especially due to human activities, pollution, this is also due to human activities and population growth, overexploitation of resources. This is the very important part, or this is very important, which also plays major role in threats to biodiversity is overexploitation of resources. This includes the illegal wildlife trade as well as overfishing, logging, overexploitation of land resource, overexploitation of water resource, surface as well as groundwater resources. Then next one is alien species. So alien species are they like such crops or such varieties or such breeds which are not suitable for the given reason. But still, for the sake of earning money, people are cultivating or rearing that species which has been bought from other place. Thus, it is creating an extra load. Thus, it is creating habitat fragmentation, and thus it will lead towards disease or spread of disease due to reduction in habitat, high population density of one species will lead towards spread of disease. So these all are the factors which are major role players and major role players which are threatening the biodiversity, which are disrupting the biodiversity, which are depleting the biodiversity at all levels, either it is national, local, global, at each and every level, these activities are occurring. The first one is habitat loss. So habitat loss can be described when an animal loses their home. Every animal in the animal kingdom has an important role in their animal community, and without their habitat, they no longer have role. Habitat destruction is currently ranked as the primary cause of species extinction worldwide. So we know that every animal has its own home, every animal has its own kingdom, and if we remove their kingdom or if we disrupt their kingdom, those animals have to move from their place, and this is the best example of habitat loss. Several development works are ongoing in if we take case of India. Nowadays, several highways are being constructed. World class highways are being constructed. That is a good thing in terms of development, human development, economic development. But on what cost? If we try to analyze, most of the highways are passing through forest area, open area. Thus, by construction of such kind of highways, will block the passage of animals. Also, it will disrupt the animal kingdom. So it will finally contribute towards habitat loss. When we discuss about food web and food chain, we see that several animals, insects, or several species are either directly or indirectly related to each other. starting from detrivorous insects up to tiger, lion, and elephant, including human beings, including aquatic animals. All are interlinked with each other, and each and every living component rely on other component for food. Either they are herbivorous, omnivorous, or carnivorous. Thus, everything is in balance. Grass or vegetation grow on the ground surface that is consumed by herbivorous animals. Herbivorous animals are consumed by human beings as well as other bigger animals. So you can see there is a chain interlinked with each other that maintains the balance of species and variety. If one component is removed, the second component will be overpopulated, and once there is overpopulation of a single community, the food demand will increase, water demand will increase, and several other things will change. That is why it is said that habitat loss should be avoided or minimized. Therefore, in modern world, in European countries, whenever there is highway construction or railway track construction from the forest area, there is a provision to provide a passage for the animals to cross and travel from one side to another side. I'm not confirmed whether this type of facilities are being considered or planned in India while constructing large highways and railway tracks. So, what are the major reasons of habitat loss by humans? First is agriculture and farming, harvesting natural resources for personal use, for industrial and urbanization development. Also, there are few natural causes of habitat loss, that is habitat destruction through natural processes such as volcanism, fire, and climate change. One study shows that fragmentation of tropical rainforest in Europe 3,000 million years ago led to a great loss of diversity. Yet, there are some relevant solutions to protecting remaining intact section of natural habitat, reduce human population and expansion of urbanization and industries, educating the public about the importance of natural habitat and biodiversity. Solution to habitat loss can include planting of trees, planting home gardens, so as to reduce need for men to need large land for agricultural farms, which leads to habitat loss. So there are several relevant solutions to avoid or to minimize the habitat loss. A very important one, what I see, is educating the people, educating the citizen of their country. Still, there are lot of people who don't have any idea about environment, don't have any idea about habitat loss, biodiversity, ecosystem, natural resources, status of all the available natural resources. So, therefore, educating people and creating awareness among the people is the utmost need of the time. There should be proper provisions to educate each and every citizen of the country to make aware. Different programs should be started to awareness program should be started to make people aware, to educate the people, especially from the rural area, to let them know the importance of natural habitat and biodiversity. Still, government is focused on such kind of activities, and several programs are ongoing. Still, it will take few more years to understand the importance of nature and natural components. One of the major steps what I observe, which has been initiated by government, that environmental studies and disaster management is a program which has been introduced few years back as an compulsory course which has to be taken by all the student of all streams or all field, either this field of agriculture, medicine, doctorate, engineering, arts, science. So all of the students of these different streams have to undergo this course, that is environmental studies and disaster management. So this will enable the public or students to understand the basic principles of environmental science, basic concepts of environmental science, basic concept of several activities which are within a nature, within a biodiversity, within an ecosystem. So next is poaching. What is poaching? So poaching is the hunting and harvesting of certain animals and plants for economical benefits. They are done through hunting, harvesting, fishing, or trapping. When we talk about history of poaching, it started in the Stone Age, followed by the tribal natives. Late Middle Ages, poaching became punishable offense in several countries. But still, it can be observed that poaching is currently ongoing on a mass scale for different crops and for different animals. Why poaching is done? Poaching is done for large profits gained by the illegal sale or trade of animal parts, meat, and pelts. Exists because there is a demand for these products caused by a lack of education or disregard for the law amongst the buyers. Many cultures believe that certain animal parts have medicinal value. It is very amazing to know that poaching is not just only limited to animals, but plants are also affected by poaching. There is a plant called as ginseng. The root of a ginseng plant is loved for its health benefit. The roots of the ginseng plant is loved for its health benefits. It may help diabetics control blood sugar level, and it is also thought to aid in relieving cramps, shortening the common cold, and even improving the mood or controlling the mood swing. The Great Smoky Mountain National Park used to be home to large amount of ginseng. Unfortunately, with a value of about $800 per pound, ginseng poaching has become rampant in this area. Several other examples of poaching can be seen in entire country, which is somehow affecting or impacting the natural components, or say like ecosystem or biodiversity. Venus flytraps. The Venus flytrap is only found in a 74 square mile area around Wilmington, North Carolina. So this type of trap is only found in 74 square mile area around Wilmington, North Carolina. Cycads. Unlike ginseng, the trees aren't used as medicine or food. Instead, the market for these trees is primarily collectors. So now the question is, how does poaching affect the environment? Poaching or illegal hunting causes animals endangered or being extinct. If more animals become extinct, there, there is a disruption in the food chain, and that will cause major problem in our ecosystem, resulting eventually in new adaptations of animals and species beyond human control. Poaching results in animals being hunted too soon for them to have time to reproduce and repopulate. So we see that how this poaching activity is severely affecting our environment. As I said that everything is interrelated to each other in food chain and food web. If any single component from the food web or food chain is removed, there will be overpopulation of the second component or remaining component. Thus, it will create severe problems in our ecosystem. Human wildlife conflict. What is human and wildlife conflict? It refers to the interaction between wild animals and people and the resultant negative impact on people or their resources, or wild animals or their habitat. It occurs when growing human population overlap with established wildlife territory, creating reduction of resources or life to some people or wild animals. Increase in man-wildlife conflict is due to resource limitation like space, food, and shelter. In India, wild elephants kill far more people than tiger, leopard, or lion. Damage to agricultural crops and property, killing of livestock and human beings are some of the worst form of man-animal conflict. Farmers sometimes poison and shoot wild animals as they damage their crops, but this can be prevented by taking certain measures. What are the outcomes of conflict? So, human wildlife conflict occurs with various negative results. The major outcomes of human wildlife conflict are injury and loss of life of humans and wildlife. So, the first outcome of human and wildlife conflict are there is injury and loss of life of humans as well as wildlife. Second is crop damage, livestock depredation, predation of managed wildlife stock, damage to human property, trophic cascades, destruction of habitat, collapse of wildlife populations, and reduction of geographic ranges. Statistics released a week by Indian Environment Ministry count a total of 1,144 people killed between April 2014 and May of this year. The source is being provided. If you wish to have more number of or more detailed information, you may click on the link and you can access the data. So this image is very sufficient to explain the man and human conflict and what are the outcomes of the conflict. Similarly, this picture is also a very interesting picture which shows the interaction or the conflict between man and animals. What are the different ways to reduce conflict? Governments is working on improvement of habitat to augment food and water availability and to reduce training forest staff and police to tackle these situations and creating awareness among the people about the do's and don'ts to minimize conflicts, construction of boundary walls and solar fences around the sensitive area to prevent the wild animal attacks, some devices of information technology with radio collars with very high frequency global positioning system and satellite uplink facilities can be used to track the movement of wild animals. Endangered and extinct species. Due to the serious human activities, some of the animals have totally vanished, which are called the extinct species. Dodo, that is passenger pigeon, cheetah in India. Some of the species are present in so low in numbers which can become extinct are called endangered species. Asian elephants, gharial and peacock are the best examples of species which are endangered. Coming to the site selection, we should pay attention to the following points when site is going to be selected. We should clearly identify the type of soil, the soil depth, and fertility level of that soil, because these are the important points. Or whatever cultivation, soil is a very important. Depending on the soil type, all the living and non-living activities will be decided, or the cost will be decided. How? I'll explain. Suppose for the living components like cultivation of crops, orchard plants, fruit trees, this all plants cannot be grown in all type of soil. Several There are specific crops which can only be grown in a specific type of soil. Then soil depth of the topsoil or fertile soil is also required. Depending on this type depth of the soil only, we are going to decide that what crops or what tree are to be cultivated or planted in that area. Then fertility or level of fertilizer, or say like humus or quality of soil, is a very important factor in determining or deciding the crop which has to be cultivated. Secondly, if we talk about the non-living component, say like building area, the type of soil or depth of soil decides that how that building has to be constructed. Say like if it is a sandy soil and the depth of topsoil is say like 2 to 2 meters approx, while constructing any building, we should we must dig very deep, and all the basement work has to be done very nicely and with huge investment. Then only our building will stand properly and will stay for several years. Additionally, if our soil is say like sandy soil stabilization work has to be done before constructing any building of say like 2 floors, 3 floors, or a big building. So for stabilizing the soil, it will require additional amount. So that is why for site selection we should consider the soil type, soil depth, fertility level, drainage of the soil. So drainage of the soil is another important factor, and this is related to cultivation of crops. Availability of water. Availability of water is the most one of the most important parameter which should be considered while selection of any site, because depending on the availability of water, we will decide what all crops or what all activities has to be done in that area. Then the natural vegetation, that will be also very helpful, and access to the area. How much far is from the main city, or what is the connectivity to the roads, as well as communication and several other functions. So these are the points which are very important, and this has to be considered while selection of any site. So next comes the farm layout. So a farm layout refers to the compiling of physical structures such as homesteads, outbuildings, waterways, contours, camps, water supply roads, and layout of orchards, vineyard, or lands. So we can see that whenever we are like at the planning stage, we go for site selection, several parameters we consider, then we go for farm layout once our site is selected. So within that farm layout, we draw on the map that what all facilities and what all constructions are has to be done within the farm area, as well as we allocate the land that our farm state, our residential building will be here, cattle shed will be here, goatry unit will be here, water pond or fish pond will be here, or harvesting pond will be here. So this all things comes under farm layout. So a layout of modern farm state, this picture can be a very good example of layout of the modern farm state. So in this picture, you can see that the farm state is not in the center point, but it is in the corner near to the road, say like near to the road or in the corner. So it has some advantage as well as some disadvantages. So you can see that this area, this area, this area, as well as this area are used for cultivation of some crops, as well as this area is for agroforestry, whereas this boundary area, there are several trees, and I think these trees can be of fruit trees. You can also see that uh, this there is difference between this one and this area. So there are different crops which are cultivated in this area. See, there is some boundary at this place, there is some boundary with the trees, so it has some advantage. Like in this type, in this within this type of field, we can cultivate such crops which are very say like vulnerable to high winds, or during the windy seasons we can cultivate some crops which are say like flower crops, or uh, which are very say like vulnerable to high winds. So this type of natural structures are made, and this is the water body, and I think it is in the lower elevation zone, so all this water, excess water, will drain out and it can be collected, and this area can be utilized for fish cultivation as well as for storage of rainwater, and later in the dry season this water can be utilized for irrigation as well as for other purposes. So this one is one of the another view or image for modern farmstead. So you can see, I think this one is this farmstead is situated at the center point of the farm. Like you can see, around this farmstead there is cultivation of crops, and within this given area, water harvesting pond, fish pond, as well as biogas plant. This can be the dairy shed or animal shed. Somewhere here will be the residential area, and this all are similar buildings. I think this one is also some kind of livestock building, say like for dairy unit, etc. So you can see the designing of the uh, say like the designing of the farmstead depends on several factors. You can see from this image it is very clear that somewhere at this location is at higher elevation, and this side it is lower elevation. So at the lowest point they have constructed the fish pond. So this fish pond can be utilized for two or three purposes. One is for rainwater harvesting, storage of water. In the same water we can go for fishing. Then this water will the collection of water and storing here will lead towards groundwater recharge, as well as this water can be used for irrigation purpose in the dry period. So next is some comparison between traditional farmhouses and modern farmhouses. So by these two images, we can understand key what are the traditional farmhouses as well as modern, or what are the difference between the traditional farmhouse and a modern farmhouse. There is also a very important aspect, like within the farmstead or within any farm, operational farm, we require huge amount of energy. So energy generation aspects should also be explored at the planning stage itself. Like suppose the area is say like the area throughout the year there is a high speed wind, so we can go for installation of windmills. if it is dry area, and for maximum days within a year we get sunlight, so in that case we should go for installation of solar panels. So this type of arrangement should be made to avoid any scarcity of power or energy, because energy is required for each and every step or for each and every process within the farmstead or within the farm, like for chaff cutting, for pumping water, for irrigational activities, as well as for feeding animals. So everywhere several energy, or say like machinery, has to be used, and for running all those machinery we require energy. So concluding it, planning is the first and most important step in designing a farmstead. Their modern farmstead should provide efficiency, security, and safety. Then a farmstead also is also a place of relaxation, recreation, and play of workers, family members, guests, or others. Some farmsteads will have high demand for electrical power and water supply. The plan should be accordingly to provide efficient distribution of these services. So many times we see that farmhouse, uh, many people they construct or they develop farmhouse not for the say like only for economic benefit, but mostly the people who are residing in cities in a very dense populated area, they choose or they develop such kind of farm in a countryside or in rural area, and they go and stay there for few days, for few months, to relax their body and mind. So a farmstead is also not only a place for agricultural activities only, but also it is a place for relaxation, for recreation, for to play, then for family members, then guests and other activities. Uh, so if our farmstead or farm is for such kind of activities, a huge amount of energy will be required. Like whenever the people are going to stay in that farmstead within that farm area, they will require electricity for cooling, require electricity for cooking food, require energy for making them warm, for refrigeration, light, fans, cooler, AC, several other equipments are there which has to be operated using energy or say like electricity. So for this reason only, at the planning stage only, there should be uh, proper steps has to be taken for installation of energy harvesting devices like windmills, installation of windmills, as well as installation of solar panels, whichever it is suitable in that area. So nowadays we see that there are huge subsidy from the government side for the people related to alternate energy sources. There are huge opportunity, like say like for area like Rajasthan, there is a huge opportunity for installation of uh, solar panels, and government is providing subsidy, and people should avail it. Whenever I travel towards travel on highways, especially traveling towards Delhi, I see a much more number of farmhouses on the highway, which is Jaipur to Delhi highway, and many of them are very well made, constructed, as well as I think all the facilities of energy generation is also there, because we can simply understand that most of the farmhouses are in the rural area, so there are no proper supply of electricity as well as other options are there. So in that case there is a single option uh, to develop our own energy generating devices, or to install our own energy generating devices, so that there will be no scarcity of power.